social work education in fact started in the United States of America. Today we shall have a presentation on social work education in the United States, which is being presented by Dr. Neil Abel of the Florida State University. Dr. Neil Abel, kindly make your presentation.
Thank you. I want to give an overview of the way in which education is structured in social work in the United States, and in so doing to cover the curriculum content that we include in all of our courses, and also the various forms and formats in which the education is delivered across several different professional degrees. The Council on Social Work Education, which is the accrediting body for all professional schools of social work in North America, sets guidelines for foundation content to which all schools are held accountable. And every 7 years, schools are reaccredited in order to examine whether or not they have maintained standards and included an appropriate integration of content throughout their curriculum. The topics listed here reflect the scope of information to be covered in training professional social workers, and they include values and ethics, content on diversity, reflection on populations at risk and social and economic justice, human behavior in the social environment, social welfare policy and services, social work practice, research, and field education. If we begin by taking a look at values and ethics, the values promoted by the Council on Social Work Education in the U.S. are the same as those promoted by the body which serves as the professional organization for practitioners, and that is the National Association of Social Workers. And among those values are the right to self-determination. In other words, we assume that the client is the primary authority on whether or not a service is needed and the form in which it will be offered. Equal access, which assumes that there will be no discrimination in terms of access to services other than good judgment, hopefully, which is exercised in the form of testing for eligibility of those services. We also stress the values of professional boundaries. Because we live in a close-knit society, it often becomes confusing for students who are attempting to be supportive to others in need, where they can draw the line between being helpful in a friendly way and keeping a distance in a professional way. And this has important implications not only in terms of reserving some privacy for both client and practitioner, but also for reinforcing the importance of respecting sexual boundaries should any temptation arise to cross them. We also have title and practice protection, and these reflect in the form of title protection the exclusive right of those with a formal social work education and at a graduate level, those with licensure certification, to use the title of social worker to define themselves in a professional manner. Practice protection means that only those who have licenses in the states where such licensing is provided, and that's virtually every state in the U.S., are then permitted to exercise such privileges as rendering diagnoses in psychiatric settings and determining plans of care. Diversity content, according to the Council on Social Work Education, includes a commitment to the awareness of both the common and unique needs of individuals associated with their race or ethnicity, their social class, their gender, their age, and their sexual orientation. Rightly or wrongly, the United States has been recognized over its history as a melting pot, because we began our history with a mass immigration from primarily Western Europe, integrating in a very violent and unhappy manner with natives who already inhabited North America. We now come to appreciate that the great differences which have ultimately come to make up the society of the United States call for understanding and respect of diversity in values, in family priorities, in religion, and in preferences for education. Social class is also very important, although at this stage in our history we have a greater income gap between the haves and the have-nots than may ever have existed before. Social workers are bound to make no distinction by social class in the determination of service provision and care. Men and women are to be treated equally. Children, adults, and the aged are to receive equal access, and we need to appreciate differences that are due to sexual orientation. Those forms of diversity link very closely to the concept of populations at risk for social and economic justice or at risk for injustice. And we have the responsibility to address in particular the needs of the disabled, the mentally and physically ill, children, elders, women, and the poor. Curriculum must take the form not only of infusing content in these particular groups so that it permeates general classroom material, but also developing specific courses which are focused on the unique needs that may accompany people at the end of the life cycle or the very young. And the richness of our curriculum is largely found in specialty courses which are developed to reflect how these persons can best be addressed in existing and in newly developed social service mechanisms. So we have the priority of addressing discrimination in all of its forms. Human behavior in the social environment is another area of curriculum content which spans a very broad range but reflects what those of us in social work have come to image as the concentric circles which begin with the individual at the center and then expand out to include the family, beyond that to include social groups, and from that to communities and organizations. Just as each of these levels of influence have different impacts on the development of persons across the lifespan, they also have unique opportunities for intervention when we see that difficulties arise in human functioning. And so the challenge in recent years has been to move beyond what was once a focus on traditional psychologically oriented psychoanalytic and psychodynamic theories to more comprehensive theories of family systems and organizational behavior. We find, for example, that the primary Bible, if you will, of clinical diagnosis, the DSM-4TR, Diagnostics and Statistics Manual 4TR, is becoming outdated to the extent that its language is based primarily on individual psychology and is not well grounded in systemic thinking with which social workers are increasingly familiar. So we see that there are many implications in both differences and similarities that impact us across these levels, and that even the language of diagnosis itself becomes a very important component of our training. Another category is social welfare policies and services. And here we work to understand the influence of a variety of larger factors in human functioning. These include policies generated by government, the dynamics of politics themselves, in which individuals seek to increase their influence or sometimes to diminish the influence of others. We see the role of spirituality, which is a major factor across all spectrums of society. There is a resurgence at this point in our history in what are called faith-based initiatives. And for the first time in my living memory, we are now seeing the government begin to use federal tax dollars to fund services that are housed in spiritual and religious institutions. This has caused for considerable debate about our constitutional separation of church and state, and is likely to be a current issue for the foreseeable future. Understanding the influences of all of these various entities have implications for program development, in that social workers need to understand who are the players, who are the actors whose voices need to be considered before we can hope for the successful development and implementation and sustaining of a social policy. And so we see that learning skills of advocacy and developing both sensitive and aggressive capacities to be intelligent, informed, assertive, and persuasive about our goals for the best services to our clients becomes a very important part of the social work skill base. Finally, because we are increasingly an outcome-oriented society, and because we live in an era of both scientific technology and also fiscal responsibility, we need to concentrate on training persons in skills of monitoring both efficiency and effectiveness as they move towards social welfare management. In social work practice, which was traditionally the foundation of all of social work curriculum in the U.S., 80% of students entering programs at this stage in our history are hoping to take jobs in what is called clinical or direct practice rather than policy or social welfare administration. In these disciplines, students are trained in therapeutic and counseling skills, in clear communication with all of the levels of influence that were previously identified, concentrating on the best practices for approaching individuals, families, and groups. Students are given ample opportunity not only to learn the theory, but also to role play in the beginning their capacity to execute the skills that are called for within these theories, and to be clear and precise in their communication with clients and their recording of the content of interviews. These techniques beyond counseling also include case management, and increasingly, as private practice of therapeutic skills is on the wane in our new environment of managed care and health behavior organizations, we find that case management is rising as an important role among traditional social work skills, so that learning to refer clients to appropriate places for having their needs met, and then tracking them throughout that process and observing the extent to which the follow-through occurs as requested is a critical social work skill. In research, we also advise our students that it's important for them not only to become skilled consumers of the current knowledge base as represented in peer-reviewed journals primarily, but also to become collaborators in the generation of that knowledge base. At the undergraduate level, we are primarily interested in helping students understand basic research methodologies so that when they read the research literature, they are able to understand and interpret the quality of the methodology and to come to good judgments themselves about the supportability and the meaning of the findings and results. Therefore, they are also exposed to statistics and gain some understanding not only in the interpretation of analyses, but also in their basic computation. Evaluation is a primary research responsibility, both in terms of program evaluation and, although it is not listed on your slide, practice evaluation, so that people in both management and direct service roles have the ability to determine whether or not the programs of which they are a part are in fact achieving the desired benefits and goals. Field education is a critical component of our training in that it gives people hands-on opportunity to work directly with clients and to get their feet wet, as we like to say, in the real world, outside of the ivory tower, outside of the abstractness of the classroom. And field education has always been a hallmark and a defining aspect of social work education. Contracting with agencies for an appropriate setting and for professional, well-qualified, sensitive, and respectful supervision is a top priority, and also the training of field instructors to understand and to pay respect to the learning goals of the classroom. CSWE pays very close attention to our success in integrating both field and classroom curriculum, and in assessing our eligibility to be reaccredited when the time comes. They look for outcomes in terms of not only our students' knowledge on paper and in performances on their papers and exams, but also in their skill base, as demonstrated by objective indicators achieved during their interaction with clients in the field. So students contract to develop learning goals in collaboration with faculty from the university and faculty in the field, and learn as a beginning of their understanding of ethics to adhere closely to appropriate standards of behavior and practice. And these can range all the way from learning to dress appropriately, all the way up through respectful professional engagement with other peers in the agency setting. Our training models are quite diverse. We offer full-time and part-time classroom instruction, encouraging full-time training increasingly in our public institutions, but allowing for those who have other responsibilities or other needs for employment to pursue an education on a part-time basis where possible. We offer both undergraduate and graduate degrees, and in the graduate program at the master's level offer an advanced standing model so that persons who already had earned a BSW at an accredited school of social work could move forward at an accelerated pace in their graduate studies and achieve their graduate degree in approximately 2/3 of the time that would have been required if they had not come to the master's program with an undergraduate degree in social work. Our distance learning models are becoming very advanced, and at Florida State University we have developed the first fully web-based graduate program in social work in the United States. And with the support of our university president and with the agreement of the Council on Social Work Education, we have been able to demonstrate that students who learn entirely in an online web environment generate outcomes both in knowledge and skills which match almost exactly the learning goals of students in traditional classroom environments. So whether our distance learning involves faculty traveling to outlying locations to provide face-to-face education for students, as has been the traditional distance learning model, or through the maximization of computer technology to do web-based instruction, this has become a very important component of our skills. Doctoral education is the upper level of social work education, and at this stage we are typically involving 3 to 6 years in a course of study which is primarily designed to produce academic leaders and leaders in research, although a great many PhDs in social work also move on to positions of influence in public policy and in administering large organizations. We do not train for advanced practice skills in doctoral education because the master's in social work is what is called the terminal degree in social work education for those who wish to practice. Looking to the future, we see that the job prospects remain strong. The job market for doctoral graduates outstrips the number of graduates who can be produced each year, and this has been the case for almost a decade. So the job market is especially strong for doctoral graduates. Beyond the doctoral level, the pay for bachelor's and master's students remains modest in relation to the pay that other professionals might achieve. Social workers, nurses, and teachers in the U.S. all are relatively low paid in relation to other persons with an equivalent number of years in education. Nevertheless, the future is both very bright and full of opportunity for people pursuing these degrees, not always for happy reasons, as our society continues to struggle to achieve balance and to live up to our ideals of non-discrimination and equality. When we fall short, we find that the need for social workers continues to be very strong, and therefore we look forward to continuing our role as part of the larger community of professionals in the U.S. for the indefinite future.
Well, we have listened to Dr. Neil Abel and his presentation on social work education in the United States of America. He has covered practically all the important areas as far as social work education is concerned. He has covered details regarding programs that are being offered at various levels, various models, including that of distance learning. He has also spoken about other intervention areas, including doctoral studies as well as research interventions. In his presentation, he has also informed us about the range of pay that social workers get with a bachelor degree program and postgraduate programs. This presentation is highly motivating to the Indian professionals, both teachers and practitioners, and I really thank Dr. Neil Abel for this wonderful presentation. Thank you.